Serious, dark web users at Reddit, was there ever a point in your use that you felt you were genuinely in danger? What happened? Don't frequent it a lot, but once I accidentally left my browser in full screen and a stranger in a chat room asked me if my curved monitor was nice. Freaked me out a bit. The idea that the dark web is an extremely shocking and dangerous place is largely inaccurate. It's mostly weird libertarian blogs and very sterile Amazon type websites for drugs, complete with reviews of different vendors. I've never personally felt I was in actual danger, so to speak, since I take proper precautions. But early on I did accidentally come across a site forum while exploring that was filled with snuff photos of women people had assaulted and then knocked out or killed. Shut down my browser pretty quick after that, but felt uneasy for a long time after. Webcam turned itself on once. That was scary. I immediately unplugged it and my network cable. Ran 3 complete scans of my system for malware and viruses. Found nothing. Hasn't happened since. I was a casual orderer of the dark web for a while and got pretty big into it and started buying slightly bulky packages of drugs. If you knew the markets for a while, then you would know one called Alphabet was the best of the best. The Amazon of drugs and fraud would be its best description. However, it went down mysteriously one day and everyone assumed the owners just scammed everyone for their Bitcoin. Partially true, but in the background it was actually seized the D. Everyone flocked to a new site called Hansa, which had some sketchy design features, but it was the next best alternative. Turns out the Dutch police took over the site and with cooperation of multiple governments ran a drug distribution onion site with over $1 million of transactions for around a month. They were gathering information from unsuspecting users, including me, who bought with faulty security practices. Now this is where I started freaking out. Imagine trafficking drugs through the mail and the Attorney General at the time, Jeff Sessions, makes a speech live on television that he was going to crack down and explicitly explains how ducked everyone on Hansa was because they have been gathering data for over a month. And in a big D energy move closes the site and puts up a banner in its place saying everyone who has purchased will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law during his live speech. I was eating myself for a month as many arrests did occur, but luckily I guess I wasn't important enough and nothing happened to me. Not the modern dark web, but back in the days of Usenet I posted some harsh CLH criticism in alt religion Scientology. Yes, that was a typo for Scientology, but I'm leaving it for context of a bunch of posts. The online threats were funny, but when I started getting death threats by mail I backed the duck off. Edit. I didn't think this would blow up like it did, but to answer a few common questions, I posted a bunch of criticism of the COS and the Usenet group Alt Religion Scientology. This was in the late 90s and well before most modern forums and content aggregators like Reddit existed. FARC was the big one and DIG was just starting to get popular. I was high school, for non-Americans, grades 9-12. I was in high school and was using my home computer as an FTP server for a Juarez group on Ike because I convinced my dad to sign up for a 90-day free trial of this new thing called broadband. I had 3 megabits per second down and 1.5 megabits per second up. Of course we never cancelled it. They figured out who I was by using a cute FTP vulnerability to get root directory access to my PC. The death threats were bad enough. But what really sticks with me is the malice of deleting my family photos, including the last picture is us with my dad while he was alive. I was the typical invincible feeling young adult and I was more concerned about worrying my mom than I was about my own safety. This was long before doxing was a thing, and online threats going from email to handwritten letters was terrifying. But as a high school kid I never would have admitted it. Nobody asked, but if I was confronted in person I would have fought back. 18 years later, if they really held a grudge and threatened me again with the same malice expressed in those letters I got, I would open the door with a gun in hand, and if they tried to get in, I would assume that they were intending to kill me and shoot first. This is a serious post, so as funny as it would be to accept the previous statement with the autocomplete error at first, I fixed it. Had a buddy who used to order weed. The distributor got busted and the postal service let him know there was a suspicious package for him. He could either pick it up or it would be destroyed. Came across a Chan style site. Every post was about trains. Wouldn't say I felt in danger, but I felt so out of the loop that I was missing something that I just got off. Everything feels government owned. I used to frequent drug sites. They would go down for weeks at a time, then pop up again, have weird prices. Sellers were different. It made the dark web feel like a labyrinth more than a ruleless wasteland. There's hitmen, human trafficking and snuff films and such, but a vast majority of these sites are scams asking you to send them Bitcoin. A small portion of users on the dark web would be there for this sort of stuff. However, buying drugs online is quite popular and widespread. Single vendors can have $500,000 plus in lifetime sales. It's quite safe to use. You use PGP to encrypt your address so only the seller of the drugs has access to your private info. If your package is seized, they'll have no proof you ordered it unless they seize your computer and you have that information stored on it. You can use Tails USB to avoid this. Even if your packages get seized, you'll often get a love letter saying what they seized and there is no follow-up after that. I once bought a bit of weed and I received a blackmail letter threatening me with awful things, like sending CP and calling the police if I didn't send 1 BTC, $1,000 at the time. I was scared shitless but nothing ever happened. Always check the reviews before buying anything. I own a fairly rare car that had a rare error code. I looked it up on Google and there was only one other person on the car makers forum that had the same error. And this guy took months and months going back and forth between car shops and the forum thread to try to get the issue fixed. Everyone on the forum was pitching in to try to help him. So I kept going through this long forum thread to try to figure out if he ever fixed it. And suddenly there's no more replies from the guy. Everyone was scratching their heads for a while. We thought he had maybe gotten the issue fixed and didn't bother to update us on it. Then one day, a news article popped up about a really rich guy who died in a Thai jail cell. And then we connected the two stories and they matched up. The same make and model of the car in the news article matched up with his car. And they were both claiming to be in Thailand at the time. So what happened was that same guy who was still talking on the forums got raided by the Thai police around the same time he stopped replying to the forum. Turns out that he was running one of the biggest dark web marketplaces where drugs were being sold and exchanged. It had something like $1 million in revenue per day and he was hiding out in Thailand while living in luxury. They found him dead in his jail cell a few days later. They claim he died of suicide. You don't just stumble onto the scary parts of the dark web. You had to have been looking for something sinister if you happen to come across one of the sites. Even then, getting access to said sites isn't as easy as most of them are invite based. Most of it is just the normal internet with questionable forums. Think 4chan but slightly worse. And petty drugs. It's very hard to reach the criminal parts of the dark web unless you have very specific URLs, and even then the host has the option to deny you access. However, once you're in, it can become a slippery slope. Accidentally stumbled upon some CP once. Noped out pretty fast but was still worried for weeks the FBI would come after me. Dark web ain't scary b. I once bought a big crate of cup noodles for a cheap price. A friend of mine used to use Silk Road on the darknet when Bitcoin was $10 a pop. He placed at least 100 orders through it and never had any issues. It's a shame he didn't keep all the Bitcoin he bought because he would have been a millionaire now. I actually learned how to access the dark web by listening to NPR. They had a segment where an author who was writing a book about it basically gave step-by-step instructions on how to do it. I did everything he said and, by golly, it worked. Truthfully, it was pretty underwhelming. Mostly just drugs and counterfeit items, passports, money, etc. I did find some weapons with the serial numbers scratched off, pistols and shotguns. But nothing that would start World War III. I also saw a couple ads for hitmen, but they seemed pretty hokey and were most likely undercover cops. I never felt in danger, but I have never gone back because there's nothing I really want from there. No government agents have kicked down my door, either. In college, some friends and I ordered a 100 sheet of acid, using Bitcoin, to our college PO boxes. We got pretty terrified when it didn't arrive when it should have. We thought it was found by USPS, our own mail service, or the D. We were paranoid. Turns out they just shipped it later than they said. We got our 100 tabs, but that was a very stressful week and a half for all of us. One time I got twice the amount of drugs that I actually ordered. Was paranoid for about 2 hours and then I just got really high and it was fine. Have you actually been on the dark web? It's actually quite hard to find bad things. Be safe, boys and girls. Don't give out your information or communicate with others. And if you plan on purchasing anything, use a secure Linux OS like Tails. Use private keys. Connect to a public Wi-Fi spot, not your house. Encrypt all messages. Use multi-signature markets so your chances of losing your Bitcoin lessens. Escrow preferably. Never send your Bitcoins from a wallet attached to you directly to the seller. Tumble your coins first. And when the package arrives, don't open it for a few days. A friend of mine gave me all this info and told me I should help you guys out. The only real difference between the internet you and I are using right now and the dark web is that you need special software or configurations to access it. You have plenty of opportunities of finding bad it on the regular web. With that in mind, I'd say that the regular web is more dangerous since it lulls you into a sense of security. I mean, most people these days have a significant amount of their personal information on there. The dark web you're likely going to have a sense to be more anonymous. Personally, I just used it for playing a WoW private server back in the day since the hosts didn't want to get a can from Blizzard. My friends and I were once ordering some green off the dark web. On the way, we saw a dude selling cyanide. Don't ask me how I got it. Don't tell me what you'll use it for. Violation of either condition will void the sale. Religious Silk Road and CGMC user here. I used to get the stuff delivered to my dorm but the package didn't come directly to my room. I had to go pick it up from my dorm building office. For my third or fourth order from Silk Road I got an email saying that a package had arrived for me, but when I went to pick it up I was told by a RA that my package was in the door's office. I was freaked out. I also for some reason was getting a lot of spam calls which added to my anxiety. I was scared shitless. I didn't go to pick it up for like 4 days and kept getting emails from the door to come pick it up. I didn't go because I thought that it was a setup. But after a couple days I said duck it because I had paid a lot of BTC for that order, so I went to pick it up. It was literally nothing. The people holding onto my order couldn't have been more nicer. They couldn't give me a reason why that package was delivered there and not to my dorm. So I just kept ordering more lol. Edit. The package was usually delivered by USPS Priority, which is ran by the federal government, and I went to a state university. So technically the federal government transported illegal goods to the state government for me LMAO. It's pretty boring. I used it to buy drugs a few times, which was nice. So I had ordered many times on the dark web, but one day I decided to place a rather large order of XTC pills from Europe to the USA. I had a terrible feeling in my gut after the order was placed and actually had some serious food poisoning or something that night lol. Cut to weeks later. I ended up getting arrested for the pills and entering the worst time of my entire life. IDK if it was the dark web but accidentally came across a website that was basically just Pornhub but for gore. I saw a couple seconds of a man with his hands already chopped off getting his face peeled off by some sort of cartel, and nope, the duck out. I had to take a break from the internet for a couple of days. I was trying to buy those super cool laser pointers and I got a random message saying I know where you live. I noped out of that site straight away. I now see clicking on this thread was a mistake. The deep web isn't scary. Just don't give out any information and you're good. The best story I have of visiting the deep web is that I joined the Lord of the Rings fan site. It was called the Shire of the Hobbit Hole or something. Yes, you can find bad stuff on there, but it's mostly just drugs. The only reason you shouldn't buy anything on the deep web is because it's most likely a scam. They will just take your money and run. You can find more disgusting stuff on the clear web than you can on the deep web. There's just so much stuff that it's impossible to find it all. Every time, remember that the person you just bought drugs from knows 1. Your address. 2. That you have drugs in your house. 3. There's probably evidence of dark web use in your finances, computer trash. They can rat you out with impunity just because they're feeling malevolent. They also could just get caught and be careless with destroying ex-customer information. So it hangs over my head to this day. Not really, it's just sometimes some creepy ad on the dark web forums. I have seen more disgusting things on 4chan. To be honest, other than that you have to be specifically searching for that and even then it's hard AF. There is no one search engine but many and with different results. The dark web is general dull. Most of the site is just for dealing drugs. Other than it's dull. Not to say that there is not some interesting site on there. Someone who isn't me was on a drug marketplace once, where heroin, crack sugar, sometimes PCP are listed, but if you're experienced, you don't even bat an eye. What that person did see once were pills pressed from the residue powders that ostensibly covered the press. These included mixtures of meth, fentanyl, Xanax, Molly, amphetamines, GHB. It is scary because you have no idea what exact ratios the mixture will be composed of, and with heavy hitting, high OD potential drugs like fentanyl, everyone wouldn't be surprised if that particular listing led to multiple overdoses. Not dark web, but mid-90s web. I was 12, and obviously puberty was in control. This was chat room days. Kid I was acquainted with, an Eagle Scout nonetheless, had all these floppy, and I mean floppy disks full of pornographic images from some asshole supposedly in Texas. Me and a few other friends were over puberty, so were eager to see naked women. It soon took a quick turn with girls that were likely my age. I immediately noped the duck out and never really talked to the kid again. But knowing the Boy Scouts I wasn't getting involved. But I was like 13 and didn't even wanna tell my mom I was interested in women. I regret that day a lot. I should have called the police. Sadly I just compartmentalized it. 1996 was weird. I've used the dark web once or twice. Scariest thing was when my screen went black for a few moments and turned back on. Wasn't anything big, just my display cable ducking up. But it did give me the creeps. As for dark or disturbing it, I've only found a list of random addresses. The dark web really has a lot of stigma associated with it. For the most part it's just people curious about the dark web or people trying to scam you or sell you drugs. You have to do a lot of looking to find the really ducked up stuff. You are more likely to find dark web type crap on Reddit or YouTube than the actual dark web. I found a chat room advertised as true free speech platform. All political opinions welcome to discussion. I thought I could go there to debate with Nazis who were willing to say whatever they want without repercussion. It was really just a place to post child porn. Nothing but child porn. Every user was sending links to 3 or 4 pictures at a time, or commenting on pictures the rest of them sent. There were dozens of users. I disconnected my laptop from the internet and deleted my Tor browser. To be in danger, you'd need to get involved in illegal stuff directly. It's not like unfriended lol.